This is Linda Carbonell and
Mary Adams. Hi, everybody.
So, Mary, what do you think? This is going to be our third show, I believe, that we've been doing on Life 101. Life School 101, sorry.
Yeah.
So, how do you think it's going so far?
Yeah,
I
think it's going terrific. I am so excited about the guests that we've had on the show, and today's guest is absolutely amazing. And I invited her to come to the show because I realized that there is a layer in society of narcissism and passive-aggressive behavior. And this is one of the leading experts on this information, Dr. Rhoberta Shaler. And I am so excited to have her here on the show. Dr. Rhoberta, thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Mary. It's good to be with you.
It's good to meet you.
Thank you.
Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Linda.
Yeah. So I understand that it's going to be quite a knowledgeable show. So we're going to be talking about some relationship issues and how to work through them. Maybe changing your whatever you got that's going on with you so that you can be more of an efficient partnership, any more efficient partnership with the relationships. But you got so many different types of relationships. You got boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife. You got mother, father, sister, and brother. So could you talk to us, Rhoberta, a little bit about that? Just give us a general overview of some of the relationships that you've had to deal with.
Oh, my goodness. I think almost all of them. Certainly what happens to people who come across what I call relentlessly difficult, toxic people, you're going to have those relationships with your parent or with your partner or with an ex or with a coworker, with your siblings, because if you come from a family where that's common, there's going to be a child that the hijackal parent loves, and there's going to be a child that the hijackal parent uses as a scapegoat. So there are many, many, many permutations in families, for sure.
So, how do you get so that you know what type of problem that you have, whether it's dysfunctional or how you can go about changing? Because obviously people can, use myself for an example. I had bad relationships, but I didn't own it myself. I didn't say I took part in that, or I didn't say that, I've added to this to make it worse than what it is, It came with time with me. It came with time to be able to recognize that. I had to recognize it before I can change it. And I think you were talking about that too.
Well, yes, and it's hard to recognize because much of it happens to us when we're young. So things become normalized in our family of origin, and then they play out in new relationships, and they all seem so comfortably uncomfortable. And so it's familiar to us to have what I would like people to become, to be able to call abuse. Yeah. Because whether it's verbal, emotional, physical, sexual, or spiritual, it's still abuse. Mm-hmm. And it becomes normalized. So then you go and you find another person who's going to treat you that way.
Dr. Rhoberta, what do you mean by the term hijackal?
Well, Mary, that's a term that I felt was really necessary to create, so I created it. And why I did that is because people go to the Google goddess and they say, my partner, my mother, whomever is behaving in this particular way. And remember that the Google goddess has no credentials. So the Google goddess just automatically spits things back to you. And then you get a diagnosis, which you are in no position to make. So I wanted a non-clinical term for the traits and the patterns of the cycles that all those people share. So we could talk about it generally. So hijackals are people who hijack relationships for their own purposes and then relentlessly scavenge them for power, status, and control.
So when you're talking
That's
about
huge.
Yep. Oh, sorry, Mary. When you're talking about people doing that, is is that something that usually everybody's got that quality a little bit in them?
Well, we can all be somebody's idea of a difficult person on some days.
Yeah.
But it's whether or not it's general. And one of the things about hijackals that everybody needs to realize is what they do is out in public, they paint the perfect picture of perfection in public. And at home, they treat you really badly. So that's a problem, because you go to tell your friend or somebody in your life about it, and they say, "Oh no, that person's wonderful." And you feel more and more isolated because at home you're seeing one side and the rest of the world is seeing another.
Do you agree when that happens, though, that actually you should seek out help with that, for that? You should, even though you recognize it and you know what's going on and you're just really frustrated, I think if you go and seek help from that therapist or life coach or whatever, I think that's very important, because you can live a good and happy life with somebody that is difficult if you are able to have like family counseling together or marriage counseling, or because everybody can change their mind. I know that's what worked for me, because I was bad at that too. I picked wrong relationship after wrong relationship, and the last one was the worst. And of course I took that out on my new husband. Of course I did, but I think over time, we've been married now 20 years, and I think we've learned quite a bit about each other, and we've learned how to treat each other right, and that's something that you offer, right? You offer people the ability to recognize what it is that they have wrong, that they can change, what they can change about themselves. But first, they got to recognize what it is. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, let me break that down a little bit, because there are some pieces in there that are so and some that are questionable. If you actually have a person who has a diagnosable personality disorder, which would be a narcissist, a psychopath, sociopath, histrionic, any antisocial personality disorder, the likelihood of them changing, unless they're a borderline, is slim, very, very slim. So what they want to do when they go to a professional, and I do say you should go to somebody with really good credentials in this area, not just somebody who's had the experience, because there's so much that's underneath it. But it's important to know that those people have very, very fragile egos. And the way that they make it through life, the way that they've learned to survive, is to have power over other people. So when you suggest to them that there's a problem, they may say they'll go with you to a professional, but they're going in order to manipulate the professional to see their side and take their side against their partner. So if you're talking about people who have been the children of difficult people and then they come together, yes, you can learn lots of wonderful ways. I have clients all over the world because I work through video conferencing. And yes, they can definitely learn new ways of being if they're open to it.
Yep.
But a hijackal is highly resistant to any new way of being because they're perfect.
So they say. So they think. What do you think about that, Mary? Do you have situations like that, like she's talking about with the hijackals, or people that are really just over and above, and just they can't even get down to a level where you can understand them?
Absolutely. And I see traits of it in every client I work with, as well as within myself. A lot of the work that I do with people is going underneath those layers. And that layer is there in all of us because we do live in a society where this is normal. This is not something that's uncommon, which actually, to me is quite unsettling. And one of our goals with this show is to talk about topics and subjects to bring your life to a whole new level. And so for me, this interview is a great opportunity to look within.
Yeah, exactly.
And then see, how am I participating? And if I'm participating with someone who's in my life who is doing that. Because it's a choice. It's a relationship, and you have to have somebody to play with in order to have this happen in the first place.
Right. Yeah.
So, Dr. Rhoberta, that brings me to that. What do you do when you find that you have a hijackal in your life?
Well, if I have a hijackal in my life, you can bet it's short-lived. But if people in general are first listening to this and they're saying, wow, I hadn't really thought about that. That's a recurring pattern in my life. It's they're familiar and I don't like it, but I don't know what to do about it. The first thing is always to do your own work, to figure out what happened to you. You don't leave the relationship immediately unless there's physical or sexual abuse, in which case, leave. But otherwise, take the time to do your own work. Why am I in this relationship? What attracted me? What is the underlying belief that I have that this is the way I want to be treated? What do I think about my values, my vision for my life? What is actually happening here? Do I have non-negotiable boundaries? Do I know how to be assertive? All of these things need to be examined and definitely learned and improved upon so that you can practice them while you're in the relationship with the hijackal. That way you'll learn whether or not things can change. What can, in fact, be negotiated in the relationship. And then you have a much better sense, A, of whether you should stay or leave, B, whether you stay or leave, you're now empowered. So you are going to have a better life.
So, Dr. Rhoberta, when you say negotiate, go a little deeper into that. What does that mean?
Well, I teach negotiation in the Masters of Business Administration at the university, and negotiation means that I want one thing, you want another, and we find a way, if we're able to say we can both have the most of what we want here. And so then it's out in the open. We know what we've negotiated. We know what we can have. We know what is impossible. And then we can make a decision around that. If someone won't stop hitting you, that's non-negotiable. If you're a person who doesn't want to be hit, you're going to leave. But if the person can say, I feel like hitting you right now, instead of hitting you, we've moved the ball forward. We've shown that there is an ability to take control of that behavior. And so that's something that we can work on.
I've got a funny story. That reminds me of, okay? So last month, me and my husband and a friend of mine were cleaning out one of my friends that had passed away houses, right? So the guy was going through like the paperwork and the books and all of this, and my husband was just taking things out to the trash and things like that. So I'm just sitting there picking up papers and stuff, right? And he goes, why don't you go in there and pick up those clothes? And I said, okay. So I started picking them up, and then at the same time I'm getting angry because he ain't picking up any clothes. So I said to him, you got to pick up clothes too. And then another guy came, I said, you got to pick up clothes too, right? All of a sudden he stops and looks at me and he says, if you say for me to pick up clothes one more time, I'm going to explode. It was like it hit me like, boy, was I aggravating him? I didn't see it at first, and then it's like, ooh, yeah, I did that, So I think recognizing what it is about yourself that can be very aggravating and hijackal, like you said, of other people or whatever. Because it does, if you're watching and you're noticing, you will notice things like that when you know that you aggravate somebody or something like that. And in the same sense, I think people can notice it about you when you're upset. You get the crossed eyes, like you're angry or whatever. And you can't control those feelings. I don't think you can anyway. You can't control the feelings. But I think that in open communication with people and in open communication with the therapist, and since you know about this I think that people could really benefit from your input of the different types of personality traits and how we can change it and make a difference. Now, I do know that people with borderline personality, because that's what I've been diagnosed with, can get healing through a program called dialectical behavior therapy, which worked great for me, really good for me. So I kind of look at myself as somebody that's been down the path of hell and back, and and been a hijackal, and been very manipulative to people and things like that. But once I recognize that, that's when I can start healing, and that's when I can start getting better and not have to have all this negative stuff in your life. Would you agree with that? When somebody that they actually learn some of the traits that they have participated in and done, and recognize that it wasn't healthy, that they can get better?
Well, as I said earlier, Linda, the borderline situation is the one situation in which we can see growth.
Yep.
And the person has to be willing, but the others know it won't work. And the difference is because the borderline has the ability to go from one side to the other. That's why they're called a borderline.
Oh.
And so that you can then have times when you actually feel empathy and you get the message and you realize, oh, I really hurt that person. I'm sorry I hurt that person. Where other forms of hijackal behavior are, who cares? I don't care how you feel. That's why we get the love bombing in the beginning from a hijackal, which is, I'm going to give you everything you want. I'm going to appear as though I read your mind. I'm going to be so attentive, and I'm going to mimic every bit of empathy I've ever seen on a Hallmark movie until I get you. And then I'm going to withdraw all of that. And then it's going to be allaboutme.com. Right? I don't care about you. I don't want to listen to you. I have nothing to do with that. So you're right, Linda, in that the borderline has the empathy to be able to say, I caused you pain, and that matters to me. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Therefore, there's change that's possible there. But from your own experience, I'm sure you know that it was difficult and it took a long time.
Yes, it did take.
It wasn't just awareness.
Right.
It took a long time.
It does. Many years. As a matter of fact, my family, we were disconnected because of it. It was so bad that, I couldn't, and it was my choice not to be a part of the family because I was being very self-destructive. But, when I moved to California, but when I moved back here, it was like, my family's like, okay, we're going to go see her. And it was just an automatic, change from everything. From seeing me in a negative light to all of a sudden seeing me in a positive light, and that's what draws me to the positive. But another thing, you were talking about relationships. I just want to generally say, when I married my ex-husband, the reason I did is because I wanted to get away from a situation. I was in California involved in drugs, and I wanted to get away from that. So since he was my ex-husband, again, he offered for me to come back, and he kept saying, I still love you. So I came back, and we got married within 2 weeks, but then he got a letter from his SSI people. It said, you're going to lose SSI because now she's got Social Security and you don't have SSI, right? So we got it annulled. And then I lived with him and his mother and his brother and all of this, and I loved his mother. His mother was just great. But he hijackaled both of us because he was taking both of our checks, and spending them, saying that, he's got this great job, he's going to buy this great house and things like that. So I know what you're talking about there because, it was like he was expecting it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I can
and the
identify
thing
with that.
about learning about being with a hijackal is that once you see the traits and patterns and cycles, then if you see them, then your part in it is to have compassion for them and the way that they behave, but then do not condone or enable. So when you gave over the check, you were enabling the behavior.
Yeah.
Right? So we have to then once we learn that, we have to take that back and say, all right, I am not going to condone this behavior. It's not all right with me. And I'm not going to enable it by continuing to participate in it, which is why we need a better skill set, deeper understanding, practice. Somebody will continually support you to move forward, even if it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back for a while, which it will be.
Thank you, Dr. Rhoberta. So I wanted to ask, what are some of the major traits to look for when you are connecting with somebody and you want to know if they're actually a hijackal?
That's a good question.
The number one trait that you will notice is in every conversation, whether you're talking about what you want for dinner or you're talking about what to do with your life savings, they have to win. Okay, it is very important for them to be right and to be validated for being right, and they will push and push and push and make you wrong. So they take no responsibility for anything, and everything will be your fault. So that's 2 things, right? So there'll be a lot of blame involved, and everything will be your fault. Even the weather can end up being your fault. So those are a couple of things. Another thing that you will notice is they have what we call splitting, which is one moment you are the best thing that ever happened to them. The next moment you are the scum of the earth and they don't know why anybody wants you around.
Absolutely.
And that splitting behavior is crazy making, right? So there's 3 major ones, Mary.
Thank you. And so when you find out you have one, what do you do?
Well, first of all, if there's no physical or sexual abuse, you get help. And I just need to say this. Go to someone who has the expertise and the education and the experience. You're going to have to interview people because, I have 2 podcasts and a TV show, and I had someone on my show the other day, and she was a licensed social worker. And when we talked about this, she said, oh, yes, we had 1 day of training about people with personality disorders.
Really?
1 day. So
Wow.
if a couple walked into her office, she's not going to recognize that. She hasn't had the experience. She doesn't have the expertise. It's a 1-day thing. Oh, that might be that. So she doesn't have the visceral understanding.
Right.
I mean, when I'm around a hijackal, my hijackal radar is on high alert. There's no question. I can ferret them out in an instant. And that's what people have to learn to do. They have to learn to calibrate what's going on within themselves, find out what is healthy, practice new skills and strategies, see if they make a difference. And then if they don't make a difference, they have to learn to be assertive, not aggressive. So you have every right to say, I will not be treated like that, as opposed to, you're a mess, right? So the assertive part is to know that you deserve to take up space and draw breath, and therefore you deserve to say, here's what I think, here's what I feel, here's what I need, here's what I want, as long as you do not say the word you, that you are not talking about another human, you're talking about yourself. And I've written 16 books. I wrote all about this in my book, Kaizen for Couples.
Yes, I wanted to find out a little
So it's very
more.
important to understand that.
Yeah, I wanted to find out a little more about your books. And another thing, too, Rhoberta, if this is okay with you, we would love to have you come back. A half hour is not enough. It's just not enough to do it. So we would love to have you come back and go through more of this, obviously, the hijackals, the understanding your relationships, because I'm sure I can come up with more questions for you, and I'm sure Mary can too. But I've so enjoyed it. And
yeah, I'm sure that's true.
Yeah, and it's like I want to know more. I want to know more, so suspense gets me, and I'm sure the audience feels that way too. But in the meantime, if you could talk just a little bit about your books and then how people can find you.
Sure. So I've written 16 books, and they range from self-help, like Optimize Your Day, to the last ones that I've written on passive-aggressive behaviors and escaping the Hijackal Trap, and the book, The Hijackal Trap itself, so that you really understand that. As a gift for your listeners, I have a free ebook called How to Spot a Hijackal. So if you think you're with one, go and get that one right away. And where you get that is at my website, for relationship help, HELP.com. And there's a Hijackal tab there, so you can click on there and get the free ebook. Also, I have a YouTube channel at For Relationship Help. So lots and lots of great information for you to get started.
That's great. I so appreciate that, really. Mary, what do you think about the show today? It was real short, wasn't it? It just seemed like it just flew.
It always goes so fast. And Dr. Rhoberta, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and sharing all of this information. And you definitely have to come back.
Yeah.
And I want to thank everybody out there for watching today and for being a part of this show. And you can find more about Linda and I and Dr. Rhoberta at lifeschool101.tv. And you can find all the information to contact us there. We look forward to seeing you next time. And thanks so much for joining us.
Yes, and I'd like to just add a little bit to that. You can also find us on Facebook. You've got a Facebook page for Life School 101. You can find us on YouTube under CATV and then put 810. And then you put the Life School 101 and it will come up. And you'll see it there. So again, I want to encourage everybody to go and find us and find Dr. Rhoberta. I think you would really like all the information. So I know you got to have her come back because it was too quick. I know. So my message to everybody out there is we can have peace, love, and understanding for each other. And, it doesn't have to be hard. It does not have to be hard. It can be easy, but we just have to learn it and learn about other people. And, well, maybe you need to bring in a few fairies from the fairy godmother, me. Okay, but anyway, so I just wanted to say goodbye for Life School 101 today, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
My little girl, well, she means everything to me. She can lift me up, take me down. She can see inside of me, and I'm all rolled up inside her little arms tonight. There's no other place I'd